We're here at the EAGE conference in Aberdeen in one of the academic stands, which is very fitting because I'm here with Lesley from Aberdeen University. How are you today, Lesley?
Fine, thank you very much indeed. Yes, I'm the Interdisciplinary Institute Director for Health, Nutrition and Wellbeing, which might seem a bit odd to be at a conference around this area, but we're looking at translating some of our findings from medical imaging and AI in the healthcare sector into geosciences, oil and gas and other sectors.
And we were speaking about AI before we came in, which is the hot topic right now. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, everyone's interested in AI. NVIDIA have got a stand here. And we were talking about integration of artificial intelligence, and it's something that I've heard sort of going around, and DNV have produced some guidance on this. And because it's the hot button topic, so many people just want to integrate it now and say we want AI, but there needs to be an understanding of how it fits into organisations. That's something you're working on, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we know that there is drift in AI models that can occur, but what we've seen in the healthcare sector is actually the infrastructure, the hardware, the software, the usability or the user of the tools has a huge impact on the performance that AI can have. And you need to plan, you need to evaluate before you deploy solutions into the field, and then you need to monitor to ensure that you address any changes that might occur. And I'm very much pushing for the don't monitor and fix the solution when it happens. We want to ensure that we're monitoring so that we can preempt changes occurring and so that we can ensure that AI remains sustainable for the future.
And so when it comes to that integration within organisations and structures, what can healthcare really sort of teach in terms of how do you tell the system, listen, we're changing our operating system, we're having a system update, we're replacing the computers, and that might impact. How does that work?
So at the moment what we have been doing is recalibrating or changing the thresholds that are being used, and that can help or through machine learning, so continued learning processes of feeding in new imaging, for example, to the models, and that can help with AI drift. What that doesn't deal with is big shifts, and that's what we've seen in the breast screening arena with mammography, where a change in software had a huge impact on the performance of the model. We currently are looking at solutions to be able to manage those types of large changes, perhaps through a generative AI approach or through other solutions.
Right, and so when it comes to this drift in the healthcare sector, what kind of issues does it arise? To contextualise how important it is to get ahead of this issue before it arises. What issues have we seen so far with it?
So in our retrospective, so we weren't deploying directly into the NHS, we were checking before we deployed. Mm-hmm. And whenever we did that, we would have recalled almost 3 times more women for further investigation had we deployed the solution directly into the healthcare without looking at this first. What we were able to identify was that this solution needed to be calibrated at each new clinical site and needed to be monitored as it's being used, and those changes were made by the company partner that we were working with to their CE mark to ensure that they were able to modify their algorithms accordingly.
And I think it's for those sitting at home, because we know AI is the hot button topic, but because it's so new for a lot of people, the terminology might be a little bit difficult. So when we're talking about drift, for those that maybe use something like Copilot or ChatGPT at home, is that the idea of saying, I want quotes from Hamlet, and you ask it for quotes from Hamlet, and then you ask a couple of questions later and it says, here's a quote, and you go, oh, well, wasn't that Othello? Is that the thing that we're talking about here?
So yes, in that it can change and the outputs can differ. In a medical imaging or in an imaging sector, however, the actual image itself, the AI is developed on the basis of looking at what's existing, what's available within the scientific arena. Right. So if that is subsurface, for example, it's looking at all of the images that have currently been taken. But if there are changes in the imaging devices that are taking those images, the image itself will change. So it may have higher resolution, it may have changes in how the picture looks. That might not be visible to a human eye, which is what we saw in the medical sector. It wasn't visible to humans, but actually it impacts on the model, the AI model that's working beneath it.
Right, so if you're using, say, data from, well, we've got Rosebank sort of developing right now, to name an example. It was originally looked at in the early 2000s with Chevron. They would have had seismic data. Now, obviously, that's a very different format to what Adura would now be using. If they were sort of using seismic data, that's what we're talking about here.
Exactly. So it's around that transferability,
Right.
the generalizability, and things change as we move forward. We know that there will be new tools, new hardware, new software developed moving forward, and we need to be ready for that and adapt accordingly.
Maybe to wrap up, I think you've touched on this and you've sort of demonstrated it quite well when it comes to how there's this crossover between the health side of what Aberdeen University does and the energy side. When you're here for the next few days, what are you looking to take away from this? Because it does, for folks, they will think, oh, well, what are you getting out of this from a medical side?
And so my job as part of the Interdisciplinary Institute at the University of Aberdeen is really to look at learning from other sectors. So I have already, through conversations with some of the exhibitors downstairs, identified areas where we may well have cross interests and availability. And many of the models that are being used for seismic imaging and others have been and are utilising technologies and imaging techniques that have come from the medical field. So whenever I'm here, I'm looking to hear about new discoveries, new areas, new solutions that individuals are developing as part of their AI tools. And that can help me to think about that transferability into a different sector, into healthcare, or it might be into something completely different.